Hi, folks. Welcome to this week's Sunday 5 podcast. And joining me from the COVID hit Chennai is Aditya Sampath, who is still alive. So, all of us should be happy about it. So, claps for that. Yeah. So, how are you, man? And it's a bit depressing every time we start with this COVID news, but we have to. I mean, man is in a hot
Yeah,
spot. So, how is it now? Any better or still
yeah.
feeling?
The latest development is in front of my house. Couple of people have got COVID, so
My God.
now
Yeah.
now I can't even practically reach my gate. I just have to
Yeah.
stay all along inside.
It's not something to be laughing about, but still, I mean, these are difficult times. You have to deal with humor. So, have you seen that your like perimeter is like closing down every week? It used to be the city,
Exactly.
then it was like some nearby areas, then your area now right opposite your house. So, yeah. So,
Horrible, horrible. Yeah.
yeah, our reporter is
At,
reporting
at
from
one point of time, it's gonna be like I have to just stay in my bed,
yeah. Hopefully,
nowhere
it
else.
goes away. So
Yeah.
again, five things to discuss this week, as always, Aditya. So uh, the first thing we are going to talk about it is ICC reaching out to BCCI and talking about criminalizing match fixing in India, having a law for it, pushing the government to have a law for match fixing. And actually, I couldn't believe that we still don't have a law for it because I didn't realize that we don't have an actual law for it. I mean, despite such huge problems that has hit Indian cricket and world cricket, so I think Steve Richardson, who heads the ACU in ICC, he has reached out and said that criminalizing match fixing here will completely change the game for match fixing and how to fight it. So, were you shocked when you knew that there is not even a law for it in India?
Uh, I was shocked that it wasn't made as a criminal law yet. But the more concerning news was the way in which Richardson has put it forward. He said there are 50 cases that ICC is currently investigating on,
Hmm.
and majority of them are related to offenders who are in India.
Right,
Offenders meaning the bookies, whoever
right.
is involved, and there are 8 serial offenders.
Hmm.
You know, so that's very concerning news. And if that's not all, he went on to say one more pathetic news to my ears at least. He said he is worried about giving those names to BCCI or to Indian police
Hmm.
because he feels Indian police is tied with one hand behind their back, in fact two hands behind their back,
Hmm.
because it's not a criminal law, and
Right,
all those 8 people are going to escape one way or the other.
hmm.
So he doesn't want to give those names out because
Right.
at this moment of time, giving those names out is like a free ticket for them.
Hmm.
They will escape when once they get into the Indian law. So they are
Right,
holding those names and they couldn't flush out what is happening.
right.
So we always say this, right? One of our neighboring country is where all these things happen, and those players are the one who are always content.
Hmm.
But it looks like the bookies hub is in India, but BCCI is paying our players and they're taking care of them well, at least last 10, 12 years. They don't want to get associated with any of this tainted activities.
Hmm.
They are economically stable, all the players are. But there is a neighboring country which is very close by,
Right.
and that particular board is not financially strong enough, and those players are lured into it, and it seems like their careers are getting spoiled, and at the
Right.
end of the day the people who are doing it are present in our country. So
Yeah.
BCCI cannot act as if it's falling in their deaf ears. What will the
Right.
fans think if it becomes a bigger concern?
Hmm.
They shouldn't lose hope on cricket, right? You and me are watching this game. Suddenly, if
Yeah.
we feel like, okay, which game I am watching? Am I watching the true game, or I'm watching a game where at least one of those 22 players are going to be involved in something or the other, and the entire game loses its value.
Yeah.
So BCCI needs to look at it. High time.
Yeah, I mean, sport is all about integrity, right? So once that is lost, and anyway, we had a huge blow in 2000, and then some of Saurav Ganguly and friends, they helped revive the game, and it's still going on. And as you said, like BCCI has to act like not just an Indian board. Like they have to understand that probably they are the richest and most powerful board. They're like, I mean, in reality terms, they are stronger than ICC. So they have to act like a global board in terms of safeguarding the game against any sort of things like this. And India has always been the route actually for fixers, especially the network. And maybe the players are from outside, as you said, like even Shakib got into trouble, right, for Bangladesh for I think failure to reporting an approach. I mean, he's such a pivotal player for them. And yeah, you have easy targets all around you. Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, all of them have boards which don't have enough funds to take care of the players. So yeah, I mean, even after now, if you don't have a law, I mean, I find it a bit sinister that then people who are actually governing have something in that. So I don't see otherwise how that's still going on. But anyway, that's a mucky area. I don't want to go deep into that. So the next fantastic news is a bit of a negative news. That's a fantastic news is MCC has appointed the first woman president who's going to take over in October, Claire Connor. So just applause for that. It's amazing because 233 years. MCC has been around for 233 years, and this is the first women's president.
That's a shocker for me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everything needs a first step. So great step over there, and she's a former English captain. And you did some research on her, right? Like her background. She has an administrative background also, and she has this Queen's honors and OB, CB. She's pretty respected.
Yeah, she has taken up the role of president of English Women's Cricket (ECB) by 2007. So from there, she has been a vital cog for English cricket, and she was also part of ICC's Women's Cricketing Committee from 2011. So she still is part of that committee. So there is a lot of background work that has gone on to improve women's cricket over the years, as we could see in the last couple of years. Where the women's cricket has come to. I think she is one among those people who had worked tirelessly to put in the process, and then how to make the women's cricket reach global audience. So she has earned that respect, and as you said, she's well respected among the cricketing fraternity as well as in English cricket, right? I think she is going to be appointed as MCC president by 2021, July, August, somewhere.
October is what I heard, yeah. October.
Because Sangakkara's October. Okay. So Sangakkara's tenure has been extended because he couldn't do his role due to this COVID crisis. So he is going to remain till somewhere around, as I said, October of 2021. From there, she's going to take it forward. But the one thing, as you said about MCC being there for 233 years, which is a surprise. I didn't know that, to be honest. But the next part is the tenure of this presidency. It's 1 year. 1 year is very strange. It takes around at least 3 to 4 months for you to understand what you have got into.
Right.
The magnitude of the job and what is your contribution going to be, and what do you do in the remaining 7-8 months. It's too small a tenure. I'm not belittling it, saying this is a honorary post or anything. But if actual contribution has to be made by any professional in any role for that matter, right? We all work professionally in some organization or the other. If you are given a tenure for 1 year and then you have said, hey, that's it, and then you are going to be taken away from it and you are going to be given something else.
Yeah.
What would be your learning and what would be your implementation? It's too small a space. That's what I feel.
Yeah. I mean, even in professional terms, they say, right? Like first year, you try to understand your job. Second year, you implement your ideas. And third year is when you see the result and on what's happening. So, the tenure is a bit of a myth. I mean, I don't really understand what that is about. But Sangakkara has been doing some important work, right? Like he is doing a lot of work to restart cricket in Pakistan. He took an MCC team there to Pakistan to play there. He went and played there. And he was one of those players who was involved in that terrorist attack on the Sri Lankan players, right? So it meant a lot when Sangakkara went back to Pakistan to restart cricket, to bring that confidence again. So probably I think that's also one of the reasons why his tenure extended, because he wants that to happen before he leaves. So
I think Sangakkara is the first Asian president or non-English president. I'm not
Probably.
exactly sure. I think, but
Probably.
he's the first Asian president for MCC. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, good things are happening. So, and yeah, one of the things I hope is like if once Claire Connor comes, then if she can, I don't know how much clout MCC has over world cricket, but if she can bring in changes in the women's game, or convince the Indian board to do an IPL for the women, any of those things, that will be great. And so let's see what she can do. And I mean, congratulations to her from
Yeah.
our end. So women's cricket is growing, and this is a very important step. The next thing we are going to talk about is the Pakistan team has left to England to play the series, and then that whole the whole policy with that COVID tests, and they are positive one day, negative another day, and then one day I'm regretting, and then I'm putting all these posts and saying may they get well soon and all that. The next day they are like negative. I feel like a fool. So what's happening there? I mean, and despite all these things, they just send the team anyway. It's like, and of course they'll
Yeah.
have some, ECB will have their own restrictions and all that, but that COVID test was really hilarious, right? And this tweet was there. Mohammad Hafiz, who took 3 tests, and then two came out negative and one came positive. We won the series 2-1. Hilarious tweet. Yeah, but I don't know, because imagine the players, they might have felt shocked about it, and the next day they're negative. So I don't know whether you have anything to add on this.
I think maybe we should cut them a slack here because COVID is a little bit mischievous, right? We have
Yeah.
also seen that happen to people whom we know. They were tested positive, a couple of days later they are negative. So I wouldn't totally blame it on PCB, but the way they have handled this is a little bit comical, right? I don't think, for starters, Mohammad Hafiz should have come out in his own Twitter account and said what he said, that they tested me positive and now I am negative. That gives a bad taste about your own board,
Maybe he
right?
was just pissed off.
And this guy is what? I mean, maybe he could be, but there is a particular way to do that, right?
Yeah.
He's 38, 39. He's not a youngster, right? You cannot say, I didn't know the rules or I didn't know how to react. And he's on the verge of calling it a day. And
Yeah.
he comes out and acts this way. What kind of example he's going to set for the youngsters?
Right.
And then they keep on blaming, saying Pakistan cricketing youngsters are not in line with what we want them to do. If your seniors don't do it, I wouldn't be surprised if Shaheen Afridi or anyone gets into some kind of activities in the near future, because they have examples. If Mohammad Hafiz acts like this, and then Mohammad Amir, who should be one of those predecessors these people will look up to, they don't want to look up to him for sure, for various different reasons. And when they are in a crisis, I really found it hard to digest what Mohammad Hafiz did. But PCB seems to have become a little lenient. They haven't taken any stringent action against him. I don't know exactly, because generally boards used to take very strict actions when they come out and do something which is not officially accepted by them. He could have posted it after telling them that, hey, you know what, I've got negative and I'm going to tell my fans. He has every right to say that, but without informing them, you shouldn't come out and do something like this.
Yeah.
Right? And the second one, you said, right, PCB anyway are sending those players. I felt both West Indies Cricket Board and Pakistan Cricket Board are in dire straits. They literally don't have cash reserves with them, and if they stop to pay their players are going to become unhappy, and already they are in a turmoil one way or the other. They cannot afford to do it. So they need the series to sustain. They need the series to run the show.
West Indies already has a history, right, of players not getting paid, and the contracts and all that have always been a problem there. I mean, I hope that's not the case. That's terrible if that's the case, because you're sending people regardless of the danger. But let's just hope as cricket fans that the series goes well, because any cricket is good cricket right now. And I always believe that all cricketers are part of one fraternity, regardless of your country or whatever enmity you have on a political scale. Cricketers are just our fraternity, and we always support that. A game is a game. and you always want all teams to do well. I mean, and be safe. And so let's just hope that both those
Of
series
course.
go well in England, because cricket also has to restart.
Uh, one of the former legends, I don't remember his name, or I don't want to call out that name, but he has said Pakistan cricketers are more safe now traveling to England rather than staying in Pakistan. And it's not an Indian who has said that. That alone
Ridiculous.
I can guarantee.
Ridiculous.
So
UK
I don't know why
probably
you want to
has.
say these kind of things.
No, no,
Yeah,
it's also factually wrong, because UK has one of the worst cases of coronavirus going on. So, and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, ex cricketers in Pakistan or anyone talking, they say all sorts of things, and you never take them seriously. Um, moving on to the next one is an interesting news from the local front, which is Wasim Jaffer becoming the coach of Uttarakhand. Um, Wasim Jaffer is an interesting case. He's a Ranji legend, and probably has won so many Ranji titles for Mumbai, and the highest run scorer in Ranji history. And Jaffer is very interesting. I hope you saw his interview with Ravi Ashwin, right? Where he talks about Mumbai culture, the cricketing culture there, how they keep winning titles, and he seems to have a very fantastic cricketing head, and he spoke with so much clarity, conviction, and also interestingly, he went to Vidarbha at the fag end of his career. He won won the Ranji title there with Vidarbha also, guiding them as probably like a player coach or something. And there is this trend of Indian coaches coming up right now, because earlier it used to be John Wright, then used to be Duncan Fletcher, then Gary Kirsten, and all those players used to come. Now there is a preference for Indian coaches under Kohli's resign. You already see a lot of Ravi Shastri is at the top. Bangar came, and then you have different coaches coming into, which is good. Which is good. Local coaches get a lot of. They should get their due. And Jaffer hopefully is looking something like he's already the batting coach of I think Kings 11, right? So he's taking it pretty seriously. Probably his goal might be to become coach of India one day, maybe. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, what Jafar has done is like a real sweet to my ears. It's like wow! Finally, a person who understands the game of cricket properly and who's well respected in general cricket fraternity and in Indian cricket fraternity, you know. And this guy has gone on to Vidarbha, as you said. The best thing is he didn't act just as a player; he acted as a mentor. The
Yeah,
entire team looked up to him. He delivered the best, and they went ahead to win a Ranji Trophy.
yeah,
Right? Vidarbha winning a Ranji Trophy doesn't happen every day,
yeah.
right? and
Pretty unheard
and
of. Yes.
he helped them. Yeah, he helped them do that, and every player had so much good memories about what Wasim Jaffer did to them, and how pivotal he was for that squad to be together and to face crunch situations wherein his experience was very useful for them to handle those situations. So we could see a leader, we could see a calm head, we could see a person who understands young cricketer, and now he has gone into the role of a coach, which is such a wonderful thing, because when you have all these characteristics, then you are the right person to actually mentor a team, to coach a team, to coach a bunch of youngsters.
Yeah.
These are the kind of people who we, not just as fans, but people in Indian cricket would love to see, take the international team to the next level. When I say next level, not just to win games, you know to feel that they are part of a unit, to feel that the youngsters are groomed and youngsters are given proper knowledge, and not this pompous dumb speeches which our current coach is going to give them. Go out there, express yourself. Yeah, fantastic, as if they didn't know that Rishabh Pant didn't know that he should express himself. All his life he was thinking he shouldn't express himself. So now he has found out, wow,
So
he has told me
so
to express myself.
all you guys, Ravi Shastri rant alert is coming here. So our
Man,
my
seriously,
colleague over
seriously,
here is a big
tell
fan.
me.
He's a big fan of Ravi Shastri. So yes.
See,
Okay,
with
go
all
man,
due
come on.
respect, Ravi Shastri is a fantastic player. He's an ex-legend, and in Combox behind the mic, he has given us so many memories we will never forget. And he's the best in Combox. no second thoughts about it. And he was a wonderful player. I mean, no disrespect for him on any of those aspects. But as a coach, I would question his credibility. What has he done as a coach? Which team he has taken up and he has made them better? Not in international circuit, in domestic circuit. And I don't want him to come to a press conference and then say, we are the best Indian team to have ever played cricket, or to ever went on to overseas tour. Oh, all right. So you went to South Africa, you won there. You went to England, you won there, and then you just ripped apart New Zealand. And then, oh, come on, seriously. And it is a disrespect for Ganguly. It is a disrespect for Tendulkar. It is a disrespect for the entire team that has achieved so much. I don't want that kind of a coach. We have never seen such kind of a coach who comes into a press conference and then speaks about the team so big when the team hasn't achieved enough. I haven't seen Justin Langer do it. I haven't seen, Gary Kristen do it. I haven't seen John Wright do it. Those are the coach actually we respect. I haven't even seen Darren Lehman do it. We know Darren Lehman is a different kind of a person who likes to speak about the success, but even he was grounded enough to say, we are this and we are not this. But this guy comes up and says, as if we are, the Australian team of 2000 era or the West Indies team of 1980s, when we are nowhere near them, right? That gives a very bad taste to anyone who watches the game. What is this guy even speaking about? As a fan, I don't want him to represent Indian cricket as a head coach. I don't want him, seriously. So for me, Wasim Jaffer is a good step in the right direction. We need a lot more people like that.
Right.
Successful players are not successful coaches. That's my 2 cents.
Maybe, maybe not. You have to see that. But I mean, you went like a tracer bullet there, man. Yeah. And yeah. And all of you reminding you that we were actually talking about Wasim Jaffer. It went into Ravi Shastri. But yeah. And yeah, we hope Jaffer becomes a fantastic coach. All of you guys just check his interview with Ashwin. Fantastic clarity. The way he spoke about Mumbai. And I mean, he was not mincing any words. He was just doing plain speak. I mean, I think for any great coach, plain speak is very important. So just moving to the next and final news is probably the most confusing cricketing tournament I still don't understand. The 3TC tournament that South Africa is proposing has been postponed again due to several issues. One being the health issue. I think one of the matches was scheduled to happen in Centurion, and that's one of the hotspots in South Africa. And it apparently they have not got any clearance from the health department, or they have not got any clearance from CSA. But Graham Smith, I think, came ahead and announced that they ticked all the boxes. So probably the media believed it and became a big news before it took off. And this is not the first time Cricket South Africa is doing something like this, right? They goofed up on a T20 tournament, and that didn't happen. And it just, I mean, it's such a respectable cricketing nation with such great talent. And they really have to get their act right in terms of, they're already struggling with players and probably salaries and all those things. And these kind of unprofessional announcements and postponements doesn't really do any good for CSA, right? And we expected that people like Grant Smith or Boucher, when they come in, they'll change this. But it's happening. It's continuing the same trend. So what do you think of that? I mean, again, another postponement.
I don't think, officially the postponement is for the COVID hotspot, but I feel probably they had a hard time explaining this format to the umpires and referees. Maybe it is almost like you have to write an entrance exam and you have to read those rules.
Seriously.
It's that difficult, right?
Guys,
you gave a beautiful analogy of, when the plane flies and then 2 people are fighting, and I couldn't remember that. Maybe
that's the mathematical problem where 2 people meet in the park and the flight is going to collide, and then what's the price of tomato? So something like that. I mean, all of you guys who are watching this, please read about the tournament. If you can explain it to us, we'll give you some sort of a gift or something. I mean, anyway, Amazon is delivering for me. So if you're in Hyderabad, better. So I'll send you some gift. Please help us understand the tournament first thing. One of the most confusing piece of writing I've read, and I saw multiple articles about it. And I mean, I really don't understand what's happening there. Again, but coming back to CSA, I mean, what sort of board does that, right? Because it's not the first time. And I remember the T20 tournament when they announced it, I was very excited because South Africa has a lot of sporting wickets. The cricketing pedigree is very high there, and you are expecting some exciting tournament happening, and then that didn't happen. And they just casually they announced it's not going to happen this way. Sri Lanka also did something like that, right? Like they announced the T20 tournament, and that didn't go off. I mean, just in general, how the cricketing boards across the world are like goofing up is it's a matter of big concern for the game. And BCCI doesn't seem to care, and ECB doesn't seem to care. Cricket Australia has fallen into the same trap right now of goofing up, and the big three keep playing each other, and then it's becoming like some sort of a private game between friends, and you have all these meaningless games. I mean, just
I mean, the biggest concern I would say was this is not the first time that has happened, as you rightly pointed out. But after Graham Smith's tenure, again, this is not the first time. This is the second time. The president of CSA and CSA are not singing the same tune. That's really surprising for me because Graham Smith initially came out and said he is fully in support of Ganguly taking over as the ICC president. Then a couple of days back, CSA came out and said, we respect his decision, but we are not supporting that. And now he has come out and said about this 3TC starting by 27. And then they have come out and said it's not viable because we haven't got the clearance from the departments. We have to get clearance to start the game. So who's heading CSA now? So CSA is a separate entity, and then Graham Smith is a separate entity. Because let us all rewind a couple of months back, before I think Graham Smith took over 2 or 3 months back, if I'm not wrong, he was very reluctant. He took that role as a temporary head, and he said he doesn't want to come in. So there seems to be some grave concerns with the people who are running the board. It's not just the president, because if president is the voice, as we have it in BCCI, then there are no problems. He comes out and says something that is going to hold water. No problem. But this doesn't seem to be that.
There is already this concern when Graham Smith took over about, so they are trying to get a lot of black cricketers into the South African team, right? So to do the balancing, and a lot of these black cricket associations, they were against Smith coming there. They said he has never gone into the grassroots. It's not about Smith being a white man, but it was about Smith never coming into the grassroots cricket and never really going into these provinces and different communities and trying to get players. So they were asking, he does not have enough knowledge about picking the right cricketers from the bottom. So how is he going to help becoming the director of cricket and all that? So, and they recommended other names, and it was not based on race. They were people who worked at the grassroots level. So I mean, Smith, despite being such a popular captain and a fantastic captain, and I still believe that he'll do a good job of this. There are multiple issues in CSA. I don't think he is the only problem. But there were questions about that. I mean, about his administrative capabilities or anything. But I think Smith will still do a good job. But these kind of things will give those people reasons to criticize him. So, and overall, generally, I think all the boards across the world have to get their act right, and this has to be done with BCCI and ICC. And they have to really understand that without the game, none of this is going to work. And you need opponents to play, right? You can't keep thinking about what's happening right now. So they have to get out of the greed mode. All the big three and all that have to think about the overall cricket, because cricket is already small. You're playing only 10 to 11 nations are playing in the game. It's not even a global game. So it's more like a Commonwealth game. So we can't really afford to have boards struggling across, and they really need to start some sort of a fund or something, and which these boards can take and improve the cricket, because I don't see the future of game without opponents. I mean, so we can keep talking about this. It's not going to end. So anyway, that kind of ends our pod today, and we hope that you enjoyed the conversation. Last week we announced the poll in our conversation, but YouTube, the great YouTube, has removed polls out of nowhere. So we were trying to do that. I think that option has been removed. So regardless, we'll try to get you different kinds of content. We are talking to different people. We are getting you new. We are trying to do some content on grassroots cricket. We are trying to get you some coaches who are working in different levels. So we'll be interviewing them and talking to different levels of cricketers, right, to understand how a cricketer comes to the front. So lots of interesting content planned. So please subscribe to us and please do the bell notification and join us for next week again. And Aditya, again, thank you for joining. Stay safe. Don't go to your neighbor's house, even if they have someone attractive. Don't go there. Stay away.
No,
And be safe.
no luck.
Yeah. We understand. It's not new. So, okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.